Happy Triple Header Thursday, everyone! We've got videos coming out on all 3 channels today, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. And now, on with our feature presentation. Wednesday, October 10th, 1984. It's Game 2 of the World Series between the Detroit Tigers and the San Diego Padres. And on the mound for the Padres is this man right here, number 31, right-handed pitcher Ed Whitson. Not only is it somewhat shocking that he's on the mound in this game from a team perspective, because the Padres had never made it to the World Series before, and only had one winning record in franchise history before this season, and were down 2-0 in the best-of-5 NLCS against the Chicago Cubs before this, but it's shocking that he is on the mound in this game from an individual perspective. Whitson's days as a starter and as a major league player seemed incredibly numbered. This was a man who last season was yanked from the rotation due to his poor play, and was being used in the bullpen. And now, here he was, on the hill, starting in the World Series in the biggest game of his life. Which raises the question, how the heck did this happen? How did Whitson turn everything around so quickly, and go from a complete afterthought and a possible flameout to a feared starter that was good enough to start in the World Series? Well, the crazy part about all of this is that it happened completely by accident. Seriously. Right around this time, Ed Whitson developed what would become his signature pitch, the palm ball, which in essence is a changeup disguised as a fastball. Heck, if you know Ed Whitson today, you probably know him because he was one of the better palm ball pitchers in the history of baseball. But what you might not know is that the way he developed that pitch was entirely accidental, and has to do with, of all things, a bottle of Pepsi. Because this is the story behind one of the greatest and most beneficial accidents in the history of the San Diego Padres franchise. Before I talk about the incident in question, we need some context to understand just who Ed Whitson was, and how badly he had been struggling before this incredible revelation was made. By this point, Whitson had been in the majors for quite some time. After being drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 6th round of the 1974 MLB draft straight out of Union County High School, he got the call up to the majors in late 1977, and had bounced around a few teams by this point in 1983. He spent his first few seasons with the Pirates, spent the 1982 season with the Cleveland Indians, and in between that, not only played for the San Francisco Giants, but even made it to the All-Star game in 1980, thanks to a season where he had a 3.1 ERA and allowed just 56 walks in over 211 innings of work, showing great control with his pitches. But now, we were in the summer of 1983, and things were very different. That dominant pitcher with the San Francisco Giants was no more, as Whitson was struggling, whether he was used as a starter or used in the bullpen, being out of the rotation entirely. Through the middle of August, his ERA had ballooned up to 5. Opposing batters were hitting off of him with ease, as his batting average against was an abysmal .277. For some perspective, not only is that significantly higher than the league-wide average of .261, but in 1983, the Milwaukee Brewers and Toronto Blue Jays led all of Major League Baseball with an average of .277. So opposing batters against Whitson were the equivalent of the best offense in the league. And it's even worse when you consider the fact that he's pitching in the National League, so he's got to free out once every 9 innings with the pitcher batting. On top of that, in 1980, Whitson did a great job keeping the ball in the yard. He actually led the NL by allowing just 7 home runs in 211 innings of work. By this point in 1983, though, it was like he was a home run derby pitcher, allowing 18 home runs in just 95 innings, or an average of over 1.7 home runs every 9 innings. In 1980, that was at 0.3 home runs. 3 years later, it skyrocketed in a bad way. Ed Whitson was, quite simply, not a good pitcher by this point, especially through that stretch in August, where his ERA was at 6 and his batting average against was .289. Apparently, according to other players in the NL West, Whitson was struggling because he was tipping pitches. So obviously, that's going to play a part in hitters making your life a living nightmare, since it's a lot easier to hit a baseball when you know what's coming. However, following a shaky month and a shaky season, and I think that's putting it lightly considering the circumstances and the statistics, on August 30th, for the second game of the doubleheader against the Philadelphia Phillies, manager Dick Williams was going to start Whitson, making this his first start in over 3 weeks when he got shellacked in a 5-3 loss to the Cincinnati Reds by allowing all 5 earned runs and 2 home runs. Again, it had been a rough season for Whitson, who hadn't won a game since June 20th against the Los Angeles Dodgers more than 2 months ago. But the Padres needed arms badly. They played a doubleheader on Monday. They were playing a doubleheader today, and they played 3 games in 3 days against the Montreal Expos from Friday through Sunday. So this was their 4th game in 2 days, and their 7th game in 5 days. If there was not a doubleheader, I doubt that Whitson makes it out of the bullpen the rest of the season. But the Padres just needed all hands on deck. Time for Whitson to redeem himself and show why he deserved to be in the starting rotation again. There was just one small problem. One day before the game, on August 29th, Whitson was feeling a bit thirsty and decided to go for a bottle of Pepsi. If you've ever had a bottle of Pepsi, or any bottle for that matter, you know that the first thing you have to do is take off the cap. Sometimes this can be incredibly easy, and sometimes, well, not so much. Sometimes the cap can be incredibly stubborn, and you can use all of your strength and all of your might, and for whatever reason, the cap doesn't come off. And for whatever reason, Whitson, as I'm sure all of you can relate to, got one of those stubborn bottles that just wasn't opening. He twisted the cap, and while he was eventually able to get it off, he wasn't able to enjoy his Pepsi all that well, because he twisted the cap and ended up cutting his middle finger as a result. But not just any middle finger. As it turns out, he cut the middle finger on his throwing hand. This wasn't a minor cut. This was a very severe cut that had blood coming out over it. As Whitson said on how severe the cut was, the slice was deep. I probably should have had stitches. Never did though. The blood dried up the cut. Now when you cut your finger on your pitching hand, that's it. You can't possibly pitch the next day. It will hurt too much, and you won't be able to throw anything off speed. But Whitson was a warrior. He had been in the bullpen for so long, and the Padres needed arms, and he needed a chance to prove himself. No way was he going to ask for the day off and skip this start, because he had no idea if he would ever get that opportunity again. The problem, though, is that he couldn't throw any pitches. Because of the cut in his middle finger, he was unable to throw a curveball or a slider. Now, he could still throw a fastball, so it's not like he was completely hopeless. But good luck as a major league starter getting through an entire game throwing just a fastball, especially because he wasn't blowing by guys anyways, as his strikeout numbers were pretty poor, and especially because over the course of a game, your velocity goes down. His fastball averaged around 90 miles per hour as it was, so good luck doing that over the course of an entire game, and eventually having it drop into the mid-80s. He was completely and utterly screwed. That was until he had an idea. Because over the winter, Whitson was playing in Puerto Rico, and learned something from Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Pat Zachary, a former All-Star and NL Rookie of the Year winner. That something was a pitch called the palm ball. The good thing about a palm ball is that the bulk of the pressure with the grip comes with the thumb and the ring finger. The middle finger, where the cut was, is placed on the ball, but not with any real pressure applied to it. The ball goes into the palm of the hand, away from where the cut was on the middle finger. The pitch is thrown to look like a fastball, but in reality, it's a changeup. Whitson was experimenting with this pitch for fun, but never considered actually using it in a game. A palm ball doesn't travel fast at all, and he saw no real need to throw it in a game since he had his regular off-speed stuff that actually traveled faster and that he had been throwing for years. But with the cut on his finger, he had no choice. Screw it. The only way I'm making it out of this start alive is by trying out the palm ball and hoping for the best. As Whitson said on this, I'd been fooling around with the palm ball. I figured this was a good time to try it out. As for how it turned out, well, it was a resounding success. Even though Whitson says that they won 4-2, I don't know what game he's thinking of, but the Padres did pick up the win with Whitson on the mound, winning it by a final score of 7-5. For Whitson, it was his first win in over 2 months. And Whitson, even though he lost some steam by the end of his start, pitched a heck of a game, pitching into the 8th inning. Things kind of fell apart as he was running out of gas, especially since he was pitching while injured, but the first 6 innings were some of the best that Whitson pitched in his career, as through 6 innings, Whitson allowed just 2 runs and 3 hits, with both runs coming on home runs to Mike Schmidt. At one point, Whitson retired 8 straight batters. The palm ball was fooling the Phillies so much that the Phillies thought that Whitson was cheating and was throwing a spitter. As Whitson said, the Phillies asked the umpire to check the ball about 8 or 10 times that day. I didn't blame him. It did look like a spitter the way it was dropping. And as Whitson later said on that start and how that palm ball developed, a piece of the aluminum top from the Pepsi bottle stuck in my finger. I warmed up anyway, and right away in the bullpen, I could tell I had no curve and no slider, just a fastball. So I figured I got only one other pitch, the palm ball, and I might as well try it. I did, and that night, I pitched one of my best games of the year. And the rest is history. Whitson was on his way out of the majors potentially. Then, because of a Pepsi bottle, he discovered and utilized a brand new pitch, and it worked wonders, as you've been able to tell. The following start, utilizing that palm ball, he pitched a complete game against the Dodgers and won 8-3. That September, he had 5 starts and went 2-0 while posting a 2.61 ERA and allowing a batting average of just .214. In 1984, he was a key part in San Diego's rotation and had a 3.24 ERA, which was the lowest since his All-Star season with the Giants in 1980. The palm ball also fooled batters so much that for the first time in his career, he ended the season with over 100 strikeouts. And thanks to that palm ball, Whitson was able to pitch in Major League Baseball all the way until 1991, winning 126 games in the process, including a 1989 season with the Padres, where he won 16 games, which was the 6th most in the National League. Oh, and for those wondering, while Whitson never got sponsored by Pepsi for this, they were kind enough to send him a case, whether it was either as an apology for causing an injury, or as a thanks for helping boost the popularity of the brand. Sometimes, as humans, we discover things completely by accident, and because of the circumstances around us. You want to play basketball, but your right hand is in a cast, so you learn to dribble and shoot with your non-dominant left hand. And now, you just became a heck of a lot better. You want to play golf, but a certain grip you use hurts too much, so you learn to use a different grip, and turns out, the grip worked way better than your old one. And the same thing happened here with Ed Whitson. Because little did anyone know that in 1983, an aluminum bottle of Pepsi would change the course of baseball history forever. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.